When fire is placed under silver, if you had some type of a container that you could put silver in it, and you put fire under it, it will melt. And if there's any dross in the silver, it will come up. So when a refiner wants to see what's in a precious metal, if it's all precious or if there is dross in it or some kind of impurity, they'll put fire under it. This moment, this exact moment in time, is a moment where God Almighty is using this, whether we know it or not, as an opportunity to put fire under people to see what's in them. Put fire under their hearts, see what comes to the surface. Kim Davis is an elected official in Rowan County, Texas. It's a very small county as far as population, only about 24,000 people. She refused, as the county clerk, to issue marriage licenses, and she told federal judge David Bunning that she had to choose between God and the laws of the land. And she basically said God trumps the laws of the land. The apostles said, whether it is right in the sight of God to obey you, O Sanhedrin, whether it is right in the sight of God to obey you more than God, you be the judge. So federal judge David Bunning put her in contempt of court and had her jailed as a federal prisoner, taken away by federal marshals, indefinitely, until she cracks. Now, I don't know that she'll serve all 4 years for contempt. I'm certain that she won't. There's too much case law saying that you cannot incarcerate someone that long. But he's trying to terrify her into submission. He's trying to terrify her into violating her conscience and knuckling under to Caesar, to him. Now, this program is going to be dedicated to looking at this from various angles and seeing what the fire is bringing up. I'd like to start this segment with this clip from the interview that I did with Alabama Chief Justice, the Chief Justice of the Alabama State Supreme Court, Roy Moore. I did this interview with him maybe 6 weeks ago, maybe 8, right after the Obergefell decision of the Supreme Court. And I say in this, using an illustration of a caterer, I say that, is it not going to happen, Judge Moore, that people will be put in jail for contempt of court, which is exactly what's happening here. And I want you to watch this, and then I'll talk more. I'm a business owner. Tell me what's going to happen to me. Tell me what's going to happen to me when I say, I'm not catering this homosexual wedding. And then
quite frankly, I think if you say that, then you're going to be hit with a fine in federal court. They're going to federal court on you. And I think that's what's the danger of
the Interstate
losing
Commerce
religious
Clause
liberty.
is the way that they did away with the Jim Crow laws. They said, look, if you're open for business, people can come from another state to sit at your lunch counter. You're open for business for everyone, and you can't discriminate. So that's the line of logic that I see them using. And then if I say, I'm not paying the fine, I'm not doing the wedding, and in the fear of God, like the apostle says, whether it's right in the sight of God to obey you or God, I'm being a God.
That's already been brought up in other states, and they've been taken in and threatened with loss of their livelihood. In fact, I've got a case right here that.
But is it within a judge's purview to say, Mr. Tyrant, I don't think you understand the authority of this court. You're going to either pay this fine or you're going to sit in jail until you reconsider. Could it happen?
It could happen, yeah. And listen to
this.
Do
you think it could happen, or do you think it will happen?
I think it will happen, yes.
Right. The reason I wanted you to see this is because I actually know what I'm talking about in this area by virtue of experience. I have spent months as a prisoner, not hours, not days, not weeks, months for contempt of court. I know what I'm talking about. Where they take the cuffs, slap them on, and take you directly to jail in contempt of court. It happened to me in Wichita. In New York City, I was tried for criminal contempt of court for defying Judge Robert Ward's order. So I have experience here, people. And I knew that this was going to happen. It's clear that this is how they're going to browbeat Christians into submission. Now, let's begin with federal judge David Bunning. And we're going to go all the way full circle until it comes to us as individual Christians. If you'll stay with me through this whole episode, we're going to examine what this heat has brought up in each of our hearts. Okay? But first, federal judge David Bunning. He is arguably a reprobate. And by that, I mean someone who has denied the faith, denied God by his actions. He was raised Roman Catholic. His father, if the name Bunning rings a bell to you, David Bunning, federal judge David Bunning, is the son of the former U.S. Senator Jim Bunning, who's also a Hall of Fame pitcher. Okay? That's right, that Bunning. This federal judge Bunning is at the same time, a coward and a tyrant. He's a coward because he should be the one saying to the Supreme Court, I will not make this woman obey this godless Supreme Court decision. I was raised Catholic. I know what the Ten Commandments teach. I know what the church teaches about the sacrament of marriage. And I know that these homosexuals can't have a legitimate marriage. So I'm not going to force her to issue marriage licenses. That's what he should have done. But he is a coward. He fears man more than he fears God. He fears the contempt of media more than he fears the fires of hell. He is a coward. And arguably, by virtue of his actions, a reprobate, an enemy of the cross. Not an advocate of the cross of Christ, but an enemy of the cross of Christ. But beyond being a coward, he's a tyrant. He is a tyrant. He was asked to fine her. The ACLU wanted her to be fined. He wouldn't do it. On his own initiative, he decided he would jail her to make an example of her to terrify other county officials who are thinking, we're not going to issue marriage licenses either. He is a tyrant. He is a reprobate, godless tyrant. Now, please understand something about reprobates. Actually, let's not go there. Let's just stick with the tyrant theme. He is trying to crush her spirit, crush her will to serve and love God, and to crush resistance in others. This is an act of judicial terrorism. Anthony Scalia called the Supreme Court's decision a judicial putsch, which means the overthrow of a government. He basically said that the Supreme Court of the United States overthrew the laws of the United States of America in a coup, all right? He also indicated that violence could come, civil war could come, all right? Judge Bunning is falling right into what Judge Scalia warned would happen. He is a tyrant. He is involved in the judicial putsch of overthrowing the laws of our country. And God knows what is going to happen to him. He should fear. He should fear because there is precedent for judges being tried as criminals for things that they did under the color of law. It's actually against the law in America to use law to suppress someone's constitutional rights. She has a constitutional right to follow Christ and to not participate in this godlessness. But he is trying to break her back, and he's using law to do it. In Nazi Germany, after the big war trials, the ones that got all the fanfare, there were other circumstances, at least 2 other trials, where judges were tried for oppressing people under the color of German law. And the United States government participated in that. So Judge Bunning should fear. The Supreme Court judges should fear because there is precedent for them being tried. Now, it's arguable that he has not committed treason because treason would be something where he was aiding and abetting a foreign enemy. But what he has done is treasonous against the Constitution. And it's a frontal assault against Christian ethics and the church because what he's saying is you will knuckle under. That is why I'm calling this an act of judicial terrorism. Terrorism is not for the victim. Terrorism is for everyone watching the victim to modify their behavior. And that's what he said, that he is doing this to make an example of her so that the rest of us will knuckle under. Judge Bunning, I don't know for what I might come before you for contempt of court, but I can promise you that there are a lot of people out there who will not knuckle under. You are a reprobate, you have betrayed the cross of Christ, and you will face God in the next life. And you might just face justice in this life, a la the Nuremberg proceedings. I can only hope so. I'll be right back. We'll continue looking at what comes up in people's hearts when this refining fire hits the individuals that we're discussing.